Okay, so in this video we are going to go through some git commands that are very common, and to start off with we need to install git. So if you search for git, the first link is git scm and you can download git from here. Now before we actually download, what is VCS? VCS stands for version control system, and if you want an explanation of VCS you can find it on the GitHub Git website, not GitHub website, so git-scm.com, and you can see there's an explanation of the same. So now this is something that is useful for not just software developers but also for people like graphic or web designers who want to keep their previous versions of work saved. So now this can be saved either on your local machine or on a server. So that is basically the advantage. So for example, if you mess something up, you can just go back to a previous version and you can work with that. Now it can be kept on a local machine itself. You can actually have a server that two different computers, for example, can access, and then you can have this different versions available on different computers. So this is actually the way we are going to do it. Now let's get rid of that and go to the Git website. You can see there is downloads, and you can download the one that is suitable for your operating system. Okay, so let's start with it, and I'm just gonna go ahead and see what I have in my current folder. If I do git status, it will say fatal, not a git repository. I'll explain what git status is for now, but it just says that it doesn't have a git folder, and that is because we haven't initialized this as a git repository. Before I go forward with initializing it, let me just go to github.com. I've created my account, and you can see that there is already a repository that I have created, and you can simply create a new repository by clicking new here. I'm gonna go ahead and click on clone or download, and you can see you can find the git URL over there, and this URL is what you will be using for pushing all of your code from your local to the remote, and that is GitHub. So I'm just gonna say git clone, and what this does is it basically creates a new folder for you, and it gets all of that data that it was there on GitHub and it pastes it in your local folder. So you can see it created a new folder and it got all of the files and pasted it into that folder. Okay, so now the other option is that you already have some code in your local folder and you just want to merge it with your remote, that is GitHub. So you want to initialize it using git init. So your local folder is now a git repository, and you can find the .git folder in here, which is a hidden folder, by the way. So you can do ls-a. Now if you want to set the URL for your GitHub in your local repository, so you can tell the local repository where to push all of the code, you can do it by saying git remote set URL origin and then the URL. Now interestingly, this will not work because you don't have a remote setup. You haven't told your git repository that you want to push it to this particular website or whatever. Okay, so before we do that, let's do git ignore. Let's understand what git ignore is. Git ignore is basically a file that is used for ignoring certain folders and files. So I can just create touch.gitignore. So .gitignore file is created. Again, this is a hidden file because it starts with dot. Now the next thing you want to do is actually add some folders or files to this particular file, which is .gitignore. I'm just going to open it in Visual Studio, and since I created it in the command line, I can actually see that this file is available over here. So the name of the file is .gitignore. I'll just close all of the other tabs, and there we go. And then I'll get rid of this message. What does it say? Subset of git features will be enabled. Okay, I don't really care because I'm not going to be using it through Visual Studio. I'm going to be doing it through command line. Now you can see there are 5,000 different files that are added, and we don't want these files to be pushed to our Git repository. The reason is because it contains node modules which can be installed by the user, by the developer who gets this project. So I'm just going to add node modules to .gitignore, and you can see all of those files are gone, and we only have 13 files now. You can also add other files and folders if you like. Now it looks like I have all of the files that I need. I'm just going to do git status, and it shows me all of these files. So this is what git status is for. It tells you what currently the state of your git repository is. Now I want to ignore dist folder as well, because that is something that is basically the compiled version of our program, and I don't want that to be added to the repository. And now it seems like I have all of the files that I need, and I've gotten rid of the files that I don't need. I have a total of 12 files, as you can see in Visual Studio for now. The next thing is git add dot. This will prepare all of these files to be added to your local git repository. And when you do git status, you can see all of these files are added. You can also do git add file name to add a specific file to a commit. Now commit is basically what adds your file into the .git folder. So you can do git commit -m, and then in double quotes after space you can say whatever message you want to add. Make sure your message is understandable for you and for anyone who will be using your code. So I'm just gonna add this message, creating backend basic architecture, and I will just commit this code. So you can see several files are created, a total of 12 files. Now if I say git remote get URL origin, interestingly it does say the same again, no such remote origin. And the problem is not that we haven't set the URL, but because we haven't set the origin to be this GitHub repository. So what we'll do, first of all, I'll just search for this Stack Overflow answer that I always follow. I literally keep forgetting this one command. So I'll just share the answer for you. Okay, let me just search it differently. Push code to GitHub, near repository. How about that? And yeah, this must be it. Let's look at this. There we go. So we have the fourth command, which is git remote add origin, because we don't have an origin right now. So origin is basically your remote repository, which is GitHub. Okay, I copied the wrong thing, it seems. Let me just grab the URL again, and there we go. So just copy this and I'll paste this. So now our origin is the remote repository. Just remember that term, origin is the remote repository for us. And when we see get URL, we can see the remote repository. Now the next thing is git config. If you want to see what name and email is being set with your commits, you can see git config -- global user.name or git config -- global user.email. Now you want to set these up, so you're going to say -- global user.name and then space double quotes, and then your name, of course. And similarly you can set the email address as well. So make sure this email address is actually your Git account's email address. Okay, now if you say git status, you can see that nothing to commit, working tree is clean. And now you can push to master, which basically means that you grab all of your local files and you push it to the remote repository. Now the reason I got this error was because I had a commit on the remote repository that I didn't have on my local. Now I tried git pull origin master, which will get all of the files from the remote repository to the local, but the problem was that I had a commit that was not there in my local, and I had a commit in my local that was not there in the remote, which is a common issue that people face. And you can see in the same answer it says git push -f forces the push. Now what this means is it will get rid of the commit that was there on the remote. So you have to be very careful with this particular command. You don't want to use it unless it's absolutely necessary and you're absolutely sure that you don't want the code that is there on the remote repository. So I'm just going to say git push -f origin master, and that should start pushing all of the code. You can see it pushed the code and it says forced update. And let's just check on GitHub. I'll refresh this and you can see all of the files are available now. Great. So now interestingly, as I said, the readme is not there because it was deleted. Now readme is something that I would recommend using. It's not absolutely necessary, but it's definitely recommended for if you have people coming to your repository and checking out your projects. You can give them an idea of what exactly this project is all about and the progress, and you can share what technologies are used, So for example, in my case, I'm just typing in the technologies that I've used for this project. You can also have installation instructions and how to run it, what kind of packages are required. You can share whatever details you want about this project in this particular readme. So I'm just going to add the technologies that I'm using, which is Node Express, and for build tools I'm using Gulp, Webpack and Babel. So I'm just going to add those in, fix the typo, and I can click on commit new file. So you can actually add a description, but I'm not going to do that for now. And you can see that the new commit is added, that the readme is added as well. Here you can see the readme. Okay, so you can make changes from GitHub as well. Now if you do git status, you have your working directory clean, and if you do git branch, it shows you all of the branches that are there in your local repository. Branches are basically just like tree branches. So you've got the master branch, which is the trunk, and the rest of the branches are gonna be coming out of that trunk. So now you can use branches for having different functionality that needs to be merged later on or needs to be verified by a senior developer. So you can see that currently I have only one branch, and I can say git what do I want to do? Okay, let me just add a change to this file. Okay, now I'm just gonna add a small change to this file, and I want to talk to you about stash before I go to branch. So git stash is basically used for putting your changes away. If you can see, I have made a change to one file. Now if I do git stash, these changes are gone temporarily. I can actually get them back, but you can see it has been reverted to previous commit. Now if I do git status, there is nothing in here. Now if I do git stash pop, it actually gets the file back. So this is basically git stash. You can get it back, and it adds it to a stack of files, or stack of changes rather, not files. I'm just going to do git stash, and I can do git checkout to switch to a different branch. -b is for creating a new branch. I'll name this branch as test-branch, and you can see it switched to the new branch, test branch. Now if I do git stash pop, I can actually get all of the changes that I had on my previous branch to this branch. I can do git add dot and commit. Again, I'll add the message to the commit, and when I press enter, I'm just gonna ensure that I mention whatever details are required, and now it has been committed. If you see the status, it has been committed as well. So now if I try to do push, it doesn't let me push it because I didn't mention an upstream branch. What does that mean? That means that I didn't mention what branch there is on the remote repository that I need to push to. So the command is already given by git to me, so I just pasted that command in, and it sent it to the remote branch called test branch. Now again, this branch was not non-existent on GitHub, and it has been created by the command that was mentioned, which is set upstream. Okay, so now I can delete the branch if I want. I can restore it if I want. These features may differ depending on what remote repository you use. So you could be using GitHub, or you could be using something else. Now if you do git branch, you have two branches displayed because you just created a new one. Again, you can do git checkout to switch to an existing branch if you want. So I'm just going to do git checkout. Actually, I made a mistake here. Origin is not going to be used because origin is GitHub. I'm not switching to GitHub. I'm switching to my local. So it's just going to be git checkout branch name. Now I want to set the default behavior of when I'm pushing a branch. So for example, if I don't say git push origin and the branch name, I want it to push to the remote repository with the same name, branch. Okay, so if I'm pushing from, for example, search branch, I want it to be pushed into the search branch of GitHub. So I'm just going to copy this command. What does it say? It says -- global. So I'm just configuring, just like my name and email address, I can configure the default for push. So it just says push.default and then current stands for the current branch. Okay, so I'll do git push, and it grabs the current branch and it pushes it to the branch on remote with the same name. Now there was a problem here. The reason for this was updates were rejected because the remote contains work that you do not have locally. So there are some changes on GitHub, that is the readme file, because of which I wasn't able to push, because there was a difference between what was there on GitHub and what was there in my local branch. Now if I do git pull default current, I'm not sure if this will even work. No, it doesn't work. So what I can do is I need to mention the branch. Git pull default doesn't work. So anyway, I'll just mention the branch name. I'll just do git pull origin, and then I'll say master, because master is what I want to pull from. Now you can see that these changes have been merged. Okay, so now if I do git status, or rather I do git branch to see what branch I'm on, and now I'll just go ahead and do git pull origin test branch, and we'll get all of the changes on test branch to my master branch. So again, this is merging your code, and now I can push all of this code. So what this will do is it will get all of the changes from the test branch, and it will merge it with master, and it will push it in master. So now you can see there is nothing to commit, and if you go to GitHub, you'll actually see all of these changes. If I do git log, I see that this has been merged, and you can see all of the previous commits. You can see some details about the commit, and you can also see that some of the commits from the test branch are now here in your master branch. Okay, so now this is a very, very dangerous command that you should probably never use, especially without supervision if you are a junior developer. So I'm just gonna get rid of this stuff. Okay, and now you can see that this change has been seen by Git. Now if I do git reset -hard, all of these changes are gone. This has been reverted and you cannot get it back. So it's ideally better to use git stash whenever you can. You don't want to use git revert -hard or git reset -hard as much as you want. Now git reset -hard can be useful in cases where you push your code and you realize that you made a huge mistake, and you can do git reset -hard and then grab the commit name that you want to go back to. So in this case I want the readme file, but I don't want the test commit, so I'm just gonna paste this ID here, and it has been reverted. Again, be very, very careful when you do this, because you can never get these changes back. Now if I do git log, you can see that added readme is here, but the test commit is gone. So all of these changes are gone permanently. If I do git push, it won't work, because well, I have some commits in my remote repository that well, are not there on my local repository. I got rid of them, and if you see, there are these two commits that are there. This fails because I don't have those commits on my local repository. Either I can pull, or I can do push -f, which will get rid of those commits from the remote repository as well. I'm repeating this again, don't do this unless you have supervision, unless you have confirmation from your seniors. And you can see all of these two commits are gone. And now if you see, your master branch is absolutely clear. You have pushed all of your code.